What it do, what the business is. Today we're going to be talking about poetic justice, specifically how to decipher poetic justice for dummies. I've seen a lot of discourse around the poetic justice theory, and I wanted to take some time to go through it and see what conclusions we all can come to. I know it may be a lot to ask you to sit through a video like this, but please bear with me. I promise to make it worth your time. If you've ever been curious about the poetic justice theory, or if you're one of those fake hip hop heads who's coming in here to be closed minded and pessimistic, come sit down in the front because you're going to learn today. We're starting off with this frame of reference because this is the basis of our argument. I can bring up all the other songs and breadcrumbs from throughout the years, but for some, that will only help to confuse you. Looking at the definition of poetic justice, we see that this is a term that can be simplified as a situation where good overcomes evil in a rewarding way. The ideas of virtue being celebrated in spite of trying circumstances, while vice is simultaneously punished, that's what poetic justice is all about. We are going to proceed by framing this definition as moral excellence versus immoral conduct. And I ask that you take this understanding with you as we journey through the rest of this presentation. For those who may not be familiar, Poetic Justice was a movie directed by John Singleton that came out in the early 90s. It starred Janet Jackson as Justice, a young woman in South Central LA who was trying to pull her life back together after witnessing her boyfriend being unalived while they were on a date. Lucky, who was played by Tupac Shakur, is a young man from the same neighborhood trying his best to be a good father for his young daughter. The song samples one of Janet's hits, Anytime, Any Place, on the hook, and themes from one of Pac's poems, The Rose That Grew from Concrete, are sprinkled in the lyrics to Kendrick's verses. Now, the Poetic Justice song came out when the Good Kid, Mad City album was released. There was a major rollout to this album, but there were 3 singles that were released before this was officially announced as one of them. For all those who say Kendrick used Drake to bring the attention to this project, if that was the case, why didn't he lead with Poetic Justice as one of the first singles during the rollout? For those who don't know him, let me introduce y'all to the creator of the Poetic Justice Theory, Anthony Imbrunone. He and his fiance, Deseree Rose, fleshed out their ideas around this theory a few years ago, but the adoption has seemed to take off more in the last few months after everything that has happened between Kendrick and Drake over the last 2 years. He's probably one of the most hated men on YouTube right now, but he honestly doesn't deserve all of the negative interactions he's received. They may not have everything right in their theory, but all they did was put their thoughts out onto the internet for them to be critiqued. And y'all went and lost y'all minds. Sending threats to him and his lady, attacking him in the comments. Y'all really ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Anthony and Desiree's theory has pinpoints and breadcrumbs all throughout Kendrick's catalog. I suggest you go back, check their stuff out if you want a full breakdown of their timeline and analysis of the lyrics. My focus with this presentation is to stick to poetic justice. There's more than enough meat on them bones to satisfy your taste. All the other stuff is just extra size and dessert. With this presentation, we are literally going to just analyze the lyrics in the song, the images in the music video, and the poetic justice film. I hope to highlight everything that supports the theory, but I don't claim to have this all figured out. So I will go ahead and with this disclaimer, these are my thoughts and opinions. None of what I say in this presentation should be taken as fact. Everything in this presentation is open to interpretation, and I welcome any dialogue on this topic in the comments. Please be respectful, and if you feel yourself getting riled up, go touch some grass. Also, don't know if you noticed, but I'm not a streamer, so I don't necessarily have the best equipment. Just doing the best with what I have. And yeah, as time goes on, if I get access to better equipment, I may redo this, but the content might improve. But for the time being, I just really had to do this because I was tired of waiting on somebody else to get it done. So here you go.
Shout out to Top. Shout out to Punch. they were somehow able to disguise what the shit he was saying on the CD. And I think that's, forgive me because I hate to talk about this, but this is why I think Drake got it wrong. Drake was like, oh, he just like me. No, he not like you, my boy.
Yeah.
This is a different, this little nigga's a terrorist.
The first verse sets the poetic tone for the song. Before it starts, the intro paints the scene for the verse. It is an intimate setting, and Kendrick is conversing with this woman in person. I recognize your fragrance. Hold up, you ain't never got a say shh. And I know your taste is a little bit, high maintenance. Everybody else basic, you live life on an everyday basis with poetic justice. Poetic justice. He comes off as very complimentary and attentive. You could say he knows he has to step to her correctly because she doesn't even have to explain herself. She has high standards to maintain. Looking at the definition for basis, Kendrick is describing how her foundational values are consistent with poetic justice, or moral excellence overcoming immoral conduct. If I told you that a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it? I mean, I write poems in these songs, dedicated to you when you're in the mood for empathy, is blood in my pen. Better yet, where your friends in them. I really want to know you all. I really want to show you off. F that. Pour up plenty of champagne. Cold nights when you curse this name. You called up your girlfriends and y'all curled in that little bitty range. I heard that. So it seems to be pretty straightforward, but he's not just conversing with this woman. He's going out of his way to be welcoming and inviting to her and her friends. He's celebrating their energy with a toast and offering understanding to her experience. I don't know how this could ever be considered a sensitive thing to say, but certain men leave a lot of damage when they mistreat our women. It's important not to sidestep or sugarcoat that fact. Remember, we're talking about moral accountability. What would a man do to make a woman want to curse his name? Like for real. Let's continue. This is one of my favorite parts in the song. It goes, she wanna go and party. She wanna go and party. Nutter, don't approach her with that Atari. Nutter, that ain't good game, homie, sorry. They say conversation, rule a nation, I can tell, but I could never right my wrongs unless I write it down for real. P.S. In keeping with the theme of moral accountability, I use netter instead of the N word because I feel we must begin to critique the intentions of our actions. Even though the N word has been reimagined in the Black community, similar to the way Kendrick declared Negus on To Pimp a Butterfly, netter is an ancient African word that means divine aspect of creation. Every netter is a star. If you're a man who's ever been around a group of women when they go out, you know they just want to have a good time. You ain't got to do all the extras to get her attention. She might be really down to have a conversation if you're not doing too much. We introduced the first pre-hook, but we're going to dissect that later on in the presentation. Moving on to Drake's verse, he says, I really hope you play this because, oh girl, you test my patience. With all these seductive photographs and all these one-off vacations you've been taking. Clearly a lot for me to take in. It don't make sense. Young East African girl, you too busy effing with your other man. I was trying to put you on game, put you on a plane, take you and your mama to the motherland. I can do it. Maybe one day when you figure out you're going to need someone, when you figure out it's all right here in the city and you don't run from where we come from. Now, let's examine this approach from Drake compared to Kendrick's. He starts off impatient and confused as to why this woman doesn't want to engage with him. That whole I was trying to sounds like using empty promises to guilt trip a woman into spending time with you, and is giving master manipulator. He continues, that sound like poetic justice. Poetic justice. You were so new to this life, but goddamn, you got adjusted. I mean, I write poems in these songs dedicated to the fun sex, your natural hair and your soft skin and your big ass in that sundress. So this seems to me like Buddy just took a hard turn. Just started objectifying this woman and her body out of nowhere. He exaggerates the topic to be something sexual and only seems to notice how she looks and how it makes him feel. Let's continue. Ooh, good God. What are you doing that walk for? When I see that thing move, I just wish we would fight less and we would talk more. And they say communication save relations, I can tell. but I can never right my wrongs unless I write them down for real. P.S. At this point, it's clear to me that this tactic is only going to work if a woman is really lonely or if she's about to hustle him for his pockets, and he don't care. He clearly has no sense of morality. We're going to hold off on this pre-hook as well for now. Let's just see what Kendrick has to say after all of this. Yeah, and he come in on fire too. Every time I write these words, they become a taboo. Making sure my punctuation curve, every letter here is true. Living my life in the margin, and that metaphor was proof. I'm talking poetic justice. Poetic justice. If I told you that a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it? And those are definitely some fire bars right there. I mean, he's really putting his skills on display. Probably some of the best bars in the entire song. There's more to read in between the lines, but you can definitely just get lost with the words alone. This portion of the song is an ode to his technical writing ability and literary devices such as metaphors, entendres, and repetition. We then hear the same exact bar from before, referencing Tupac's rose that grew from concrete. If the impossible was made possible, would you believe? He continues, I mean, you need to hear this. Love is not just a verb, it's you looking in the mirror. Love is not just a verb, it's you looking for it, maybe. Call me crazy. We can both be insane. A fatal attraction is common, and what we have common is pain. I mean, you need to hear this. Love is not just a verb, and I can see power steering. Sex drive when you swerve. I want that interference. It's coherent. I can hear it. Mm-hmm. That's your heartbeat. It either caught me or it called me. Mm-hmm. And so we hear more repetition. At this point, we see a point of view starting to emerge, and it comes off as judgmental as opposed to his poetic tone from the first verse. The repetition points us to the depth of the message. We hope the emphasis leads you to investigate deeper exactly what he is trying to say. When your heart needs attention and care, I can be there for you. I want to make it clear that I understand you. Read slow and you'll find gold mines in these lines. Sincerely yours truly, and right before you go blind. P.S. This is the culmination of the entire song. He has said all of this to say you may want to go back and take a look at what was said. I'm just saying, before you miss it, you might want to pay attention. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Before we do that, let's check out the hook. Anytime you can get it, you can get it, you can get it, in any place. And I know just what you want. Poetic justice, put it in a song. All right. So, even though this sounds like a love song and the original song it was sampled from is literally about making love anywhere, the double entendre here is that you can get got, you can be punished, you can be brought to the court to be judged. Calling back to the meaning of poetic justice, moral excellence overcoming immoral conduct. He is telling us how he literally put that in this song. So where's the diss? In case you haven't figured it out on your own by now, we're going to go back through these lyrics and pick them apart with a fine-tooth comb. Most of the reactors I've seen seem to be more concerned with picking apart Anthony and his theory instead of actually looking at the lyrics in their totality. No need to get distracted by any other song or any other narratives from anime or the MCU. Just straight to the words and how they come together in the bars for now. We have a few levels to the disc that we're going to discuss. Starting with the lyrics to the song, we're going to look at the different tones in the verses, the amount of repetition in the lyrics, the pre-hook variations, as well as how the definition of love plays into all of this. We're also going to look at how the game played out in all of this from Poetic Justice throughout the whole beef, as well as two Other ideas that I don't think I've seen anybody mention, we're going to talk about the 4 core language skills as well as the 5 senses and how they come together in this song to diss Drake. All right. So this is the part of the song where I feel the tone starts to shift. To literally mention how you want to curse someone's name takes me out of that whole lovey-dovey feeling that I had from the beginning of the verse. I know that's intentional because tension adds to the drama of the story. You see the beginning of the game theme mentioned when he warns his homie, hey, don't approach that girl like that. He sounds like he knows homie won't get it. He doesn't respect the woman enough to see that he has to come correct or not come at all. Pause. Um, yeah, let's continue. Now, if you take an honest look at how Drake opens this verse, I want you to imagine it playing out in real life. Say you're at a party or a concert or even a restaurant or a bar. If you saw Kendrick approach a woman in the way that he rapped in his first verse and compare that with how Drake is speaking to this woman, it's kind of cringe when you begin to see the lengths Drake is willing to go to. He doesn't care about what she has going on, whoever else she may be talking to or interested in at the moment, just the mixed messages he feels she's sending, probably on social media. She's out there living her life, taking pictures, on vacation, and he can't stand it because she's not with him. The East African girl cadence had us distracted because why are you confessing she's with another man? You already talked about how you were impatient and confused. Now you're trying to break up a happy home. And you talking about game? What game? Implying that this girl should come around because she's going to need you? That sounds so weak to me. You sound like you're in your feelings for real. Whether you wrote it or not, you meant to say this? Like you thought you could get that off? Huh? Like I'm really upset nobody has called you out for this foolishness because you definitely played yourself. When you consider this man as being led by his sight and not by faith, his focus undoubtedly has led him off the right path. If this is a love song, why are you admitting to fighting this woman and you begging her to talk to you at this point? And now I know this might be, just a little bit of a funny reach, but the fact that he referred to that thing move like reminded me of Lauryn Hill's uh, infamous single "Doo Wop," where she literally says the second verse is dedicated to the man who's more concerned with his rims and his Timbs than his woman. And if that don't sound like Drake, I don't know what does. This seems like as good a time as any to go in on the topic of repetition in rap. You can see how halfway through Drake's verse, he starts repeating lines and concepts from the first verse. It should be said that usually when you see the same word being repeated in the lyrics of a rap song, it could be a sign of redundancy, like with a lot of the mumble and vibe rappers of the late 2010s. But when you know someone has obtained lyrical mastery, you know that there's a reason for the emphasis. In the case of this verse, I think the writer wants you to look deeper into the context in which these words are being used. You see how repetition can be used for memorability, impact, rhythm, and in some cases, emotional depth. We're going to see examples of all of this, as well as others, throughout the rest of the song. When you begin to see how these examples of repetition are literary devices used intentionally, these lyrics begin to tell us a much different story from the simple assumptions we have about this verse. There are major threads connecting all of these verses together, and the repetition is the key that lets us know that this is how we solve this riddle. There's these awesome sisters called the Shootas on YouTube who do what they call lyrical math, where they talk about the different literary devices used in popular rap songs. They have a valuable perspective on the artistic imprint in hip hop. Let's take a look at one of the lessons about the use of repetition as a literary device in rap music. Ironically, she's discussing these topics while breaking down Euphoria, but most of it can be applied to poetic justice as well.
For this second part of the song, this verse is filled with repetition. So much so that I would consider repetition a theme in this second part. And these are the types of repetition used in this section of the verse that you see in the graphic. In the first two lines here, we have simplicity, which is the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning and the end of a line. We have anaphora, which is the repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of a line, and he uses anaphora a lot in this section of the song. The function of anaphora is usually to be used as a momentum builder. The repetition gets you hype. The same way we repeat words like yeah, or a, or go, or a person's name when we're hyping them up to dance or freestyling, you know? So the anaphora builds up the momentum of the verse. It's like a natural progression of hypeness. And then another type of repetition in this part of the song is epistrophe. So not only does he use repetition to open up a line, but he also uses repetition to close some of them up. Most of them in this part in the word okay. Repetition at the end of a line acts as punctuation. It's like he's affirming what he just said and underscoring it with the repetition of the word.
Yeah, I'm low, okay. Yeah, the island right here is remote, okay.
The same way an exclamation point underscores the excited nature of an exclamatory statement. The repeated words at the end of each line could also be a bit of a parody. Kendrick has proven to us time and time again that he does not need space fillers to make a great song or a great verse. He does not have to repeat the same word or the same phrase at the beginning or the end of a sentence to get his message across. So he must be doing it for a reason. And that reason could be to mock his opponent, because many new age rappers lazily overuse ad-libs as a means to take up space in their music, in their songs.
All right, now let's take an in-depth look at these pre-hooks. When you see them side by side, you can see they are not saying the exact same thing. The subtle differences between the phrases are the differences between describing your path to righteousness and confessing your professional shortcomings. I know it can be a bit of a challenge to understand how these subtle differences translate into phrases with different meanings. I literally just hopped on Google and asked the search and the AI to explain it to me. Kendrick's version of the pre-hook basically says how he was able to right his wrongs through his writing. He wrote down his experiences and put them into his songs. He's arguing his virtue as he paints a picture how he has used his faculties to obtain moral excellence. Drake's version, after all that immoral behavior he described in his verse, literally says he can never right his wrongs unless he writes them down for real. Unless he really writes his words, he is not able to right his wrongs. Him saying that is ridiculous on his part. Like, how do you not know what you're saying when you say that? Did you even read the words? That, more than anything, is enough evidence to argue that he did not write that line himself. The subtle differences and nuance in which it was delivered was diabolical. There's no way he wrote that himself, but even if he did, he told on himself, and that is still a diss. Now that that is over, we can go ahead and hammer the nail with this last verse. The opening literally says, every letter here is true. Not to mention the repetition of I write as he describes the words, I'm talking poetic justice. Remember, this stands for moral excellence overcoming immoral conduct. Now, this is one of my hot takes where I almost pulled my shoulder out. Shout out to the Black Dot and the Urban X crew. But if you've ever played the game Taboo, you will know that to gain points, you have to help your team guess a word without using any of the taboo words that are listed on the card and associated with the original word. Now, let's take that same process and apply it to the way that we're able to decode the messages in Kendrick's lyrics. It's literally like he's playing a game of Taboo with us. Considering the repetition earlier, this part connects directly with the repetition from the first two verses. I mean, I write poems, except this time he's professing, I mean, you need to hear this. He follows it up with the phrase, love is not just a verb, and he repeats the whole thing again. At this point, you have to ask yourself, why? If you take a look at the definition of love, under the section describing love as a verb, you will see a reference to sexual attachment. You will also notice that while this describes love as pleasant, it's somewhat shallow. Now let's make a little room so we can see what it looks like when love is not just a verb. When we look at love as a noun, we begin to see more of what Kendrick was trying to say. Love as a noun is an intense, deep affection. It refers to something greater. You can even use this to define someone that you love. The previous section talked about looking to see what you can do to find love. This section talks about what Kendrick sees from when you don't have love in your life. I see Kendrick speaking to the woman again in this verse, only this time he's way more judgmental. He doesn't make it about the other guy who just wants her for sex. He's pouring out his heart to tell her how his perception has caused him to come to this conclusion. He sees power steering and sex driving when she swerves off course. He wants that interference to be able to correct her attention elsewhere, to guide her away from the corruption. He's connected to her heart, which could be a reference to the Heart series in Kendrick's music. The sincerely yours truly, like the I write at the beginning of this verse, implies his contribution to this work. You don't say yours truly and give credit to someone else. He's saying he wrote this for you, for hip hop. Now we're going to transition to some of the other themes in the lyrics. Let's see what kind of game was being played the whole time on this song.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
It's not enough.
Man, Doc gave that boy a heads up and told him his game was weak up front, and he still went through with it anyway. It seems like this little fiasco should have ended here, but homie was playing chess while Lobby was playing checkers. This little exhibition carried over into them sending subliminal shots back and forth for over a dozen years, which led to the great rap beef of April, May, and June 2024. This ultimately culminated in him performing like he was in a video game at the Super Bowl. Game over. That's my fault. I was supposed to just stick to Poetic Justice. I know some of y'all wanted something sweet, but let me get back on track. We could kind of breeze through this, but I wanted to introduce this concept to be considered in the Poetic Justice Theory. Let's take a look at the core foundational skills of language: speaking, writing, listening, and reading. We can see how important these skills are to our everyday lives. When we look at how these skills are integrated into different parts of the song, we can begin to see how the writer is essentially saying the same thing. While researching the 4 core skills, I came across this nugget that describes how they integrate with other critical skills such as grammar and vocabulary. Nothing special to impart here, I just want to stress the importance of taking your time to investigate things clearly. There's no excuse when you say you don't understand something to not be able to hop on the internet, ask the right questions, and gain a better understanding. Go ahead and make the ancestors proud. You know what I'm talking about? When we start with speaking, we can see how that was introduced in the first part of the first verse. It was also used in the pre-hook that is consistent across the first 2 verses. Drake's example of speaking highlights how he wishes that he and his interests could talk more. Now, in the first 2 verses, both of them use writing when they describe how they dedicate their poems. They also use writing in their respective pre-hooks to describe the avenue to which they right their wrongs. Shout out to the Third Verse podcast, because Kendrick on that third verse took over the narrative about these skill sets. I'm talking moral excellence over immoral conduct. Every time I write these words. No confusion, no questions, just straight cutthroat from the heart. Jumping to the next skill, we see how reading was used in the climax of the final verse. For this to be the only time this core skill was mentioned at the end, when the others were mentioned multiple times, stresses the importance of the direction being provided.
So, Poetic Justice in the shade of Money Trees, and he's shading Drake. So that's the theory behind the Poetic Justice Theory. What do you think about that?
It's 100% true.
What?
Nah, it's...
That's amazing.
Nah, man. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there, man. That one in particular. As much as I would want to say that, like, yeah, it's all like, nah, like, I remember we sent the record to Drake. He just sent the verse, sent a couple verses back. I think he went back after Dot, like, did a verse. He wanted to do it again or whatever. But yeah, nah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's multiple times where I see theories online and I'm like, yo, is this true? Like, like, and I don't want to seem like a fucking idiot. Like, I recorded this shit and it's like, yo, you what do you mean is it true? Like, and it's like, I'm kind of, but, there are things that he does do intentionally, right? And there's things that, the fans, put together. But I think either way, it goes back to just the art of the music. It's like that music is making people think that deeply now. Like, that's fucking fantastic, right? You're not just listening to a song and going to the next on the playlist. You're coming up with these theories that make a lot of fucking sense,
That you can make sense.
That you can make sense. I've seen people reverse the track list to Damn.
Yeah.
Following these instructions, I'm going to show the connection between these core skills of language and the 5 senses. Hearing being included in both of these concepts, it was ironic how it was subtly mentioned in the first 2 verses. I'll delve more into these examples in later parts of this presentation, but we certainly shouldn't just breeze by these instances because they play a significant part in the overall narrative. We use the 5 senses to help shape our reality. They play a major role in how we interpret external stimuli. While hearing is the last core skill, I decided to highlight hearing as the first sense because of the frequency of its use across all the verses. It was included in the 3rd verse with "I mean" as an emphasis before declaring how much you need to hear this. It was so important he felt the need to say it twice. He also closes when describing his connection to his woman by saying how he can hear her heartbeat. This may be a bit of a reach, but shout out to Baba Yasir. I'm about to get my Smai Tawi on. Okay, so before we continue, I know this is a lot to process, so let's take a quick moment to perform some breathing exercises and calm the nerves. Inhale through the nose, hold for a few seconds, and exhale through the mouth. Now let's proceed with our faculties and share in this reality, the dis in the 5 senses. The song opens with describing a sweet scent and fragrance. Kendrick also quickly follows that with taste, describing his woman's high standards. As far as the next sense in the song, it comes when Drake says how when he sees that thing move. I want y'all to consider who Lauryn Hill was talking about when she said, money chasing, heartbreaking, now you wonder why women hate men. Quick to shoot the scene and stop acting like boys and be men. How you gonna win when you ain't right within?
The 3rd verse.
The 3rd verse bombs back with multiple examples of sight, where he offers guidance with where to look and describing what he sees. And not to get too off topic, Kendrick did say on Buried Alive how he and Drake talked casually how women are the tastemakers for the things they make. That's too much dessert. Gotta save that sweet tooth for later. Fast forward to his verse on Poetic Justice. It's not making sense for him. There's really too many examples how the nuance in these words is thread together so perfectly. There's no way I'll ever believe Drake had a hand in coming up with this. After talking about the other senses, Kendrick closes the song directly addressing the sense Drake was mostly being led by. He warns him that he may lose his ability to see if he's not ultimately able to recognize the value in these words.
Kendrick saw what the industry was trying to do, and he made it his personal mission to ensure that that didn't happen. He saw that the industry was trying to mutate hip-hop and make it pop. because of what Drake told him. You gotta make music for women. He's not speaking to Kendrick from a rapper's experience and from a rapper's perspective. He is speaking to Kendrick from a pop artist's perspective. And in the pop genre, your target demographic are women. They were trying to erase the true spirit of hip-hop altogether and utterly gentrify it to make it more palpable to mainstream audiences. That's what was happening. And Kendrick has always been a champion of the culture, a warrior of the culture. He was not going to let the industry plant this parasite within the hip hop culture to essentially turn it into something more palpable for mainstream audiences, because that's not what hip hop was all about. Hip hop was not designed to appeal to mainstream audiences. It was designed to appeal to people who shared that same experience and who resonated with the messages, with the stories, with the music, with the vibes. And now hip hop is mainstream, but it didn't have to sacrifice its identity to do so. So Kendrick's mission was complete. He did it.
Tell him Kendrick did it.
Now that we've gone through hearing, smelling, tasting, and seeing, what about touch? We'll take a look at that when we dig into the music video and the film in part 2 of this breakdown. We'll be carrying on some of the themes in these lyrics as well as introducing some new concepts you may not have previously thought of.
I mean, look, he was never the culture. Again, he took rap. He used rap. He weaponized rap. He weaponized our culture to appeal to us for his personal gain. There was no true desire in him to build up none of the shit he's talking about. There's no true desire in him to help repair the drill movement in Chicago, the things that inspire that art. There's no true desire in him to focus on Atlanta and the trap culture that he kind of pilfers from. He don't fucking care. He's a record maker. So even when we saying like artistically it's great, that probably is not even true. I don't think he's this like superb artist as far as art goes. I think he's a premier record maker.
Now, not to come off like a jerk or anything, but this whole idea came about as a response to a YouTube channel taking offense to me asking them to deCypher the lyrics to Poetic Justice. In case the metaphors didn't reach you, I wasn't being funny. I was dead serious. I'm not going to bang on y'all too much because all y'all did was behave like a less mature version of me. It's still all love at the end of the day.
Kendrick said at the end of the verse, I rewrote the devil's story just to take our power back. Carnated, in his lifetime, he's trying to do better, but in his past lifetime, he didn't do so well. This is what I mean by grace. God has given us the opportunity to get it right, y'all. You have the choice to do good or to do evil. You have choices. You got a choice.
Yeah, I love the fact that a lot of these individuals like put together these theories because at times there's been multiple times, right, that I've had to call Dot because, you know, the way he puts albums together, right, when you go back and listen to Pimp a Butterfly, right, I didn't hear the Tupac skits until the album was done. Like, you know, I didn't hear anything like how he's putting it together. Like, he was still in his mind conceptualizing, you know, how is he going to tie this together, right, which is super just creatively, like, it's way more advanced than what I could even fathom at that time in my life.
Right.